Today, we're going to talk about streamlining your processes. Here is our agenda. The framework you all are all familiar from last week, but just by way of refreshing, I asked you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5. Just every week, I would encourage you all to just think about, is your rating improving based on the offline work you're doing? And our 5 pillars, once again, we already tackled the financial planning by going over some budgeting. Today, we are going to tackle 2 of our pillars, which is the software and the policies. And then next week, we'll go on to our reconciliations and reporting, and then we'll close it out by talking about our trusted advisor and tips to sustain your systems. For these 2 pillars today, we're talking about streamlining your processes. And that just basically means that they're really efficient, they're not overly complicated, and it's smooth sailing with regard to your accounting for your business. The objectives I have for us is this first section, we're going to talk about leveraging software. You'll be able to assess your accounting technology needs, and I'll share tips on how you can optimize your software. In the second part, we will go over practical money management policies and procedures, and I'll just briefly show how AI can also support your policy development. And out of curiosity, anyone use AI fairly regularly in their day-to-day lives? So I'm using it probably more than 3 times a week, seems like daily, depending on what I'm working on. So leveraging your software. Let's start off by talking about what is accounting software. It's a computer program that tracks, manages, and helps report your financial transactions. If you have the right software, it can help with your tax filings, financial reports, customer invoicing, payroll, and more. And I wanted to kind of poll, is anyone currently using some form of software for their business? Well, let's talk about some key functions for software. I personally would say the fundamental functions you should have in place are the 5 on the left side there. And that's how you invoice your customers, your bank reconciliations, your reporting, budgeting, and tax preparation. All of that is something you want to make sure that the software you're using can fulfill. And then as you grow, or if you have needs beyond that, payroll, paying your bills, tracking your accounts receivable, that means how much clients or customers owe you, so you can see how much is out in collections and how long it's been outstanding. And then of course your accounts payable goes to the bills you pay, how much you have to pay out to run your business. And some of you may have products like swag or anything like that. You can set up your software to help track inventory. So there's several other functions, but again, the key functions, I would say, focusing on the left. Here are some top accounting software. These are all cloud-based options, so you can be on vacation and still access anywhere you are. And we're going to talk about researching some of the benefits of these as well. But first, I wanted to ask you all, what functions are most important to your business? If we just take pause and think about, as you are right now, and as you aspire to grow your business, what are the absolutes you must have? Considering all aspects of your software needs, you also want to include how much do you have in your budget to pay for them. So let's talk a little bit more on how do you make a choice. And I thought it'd be helpful to say the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Just take a moment and read this slide. And these are things you should really have clear in your mind as you're approaching to decide on which software is best for your business. The one I really want to point out to is number 6, because choosing a software is one step, but you have to factor in time for you to not only set it up, but train on how to effectively use it. So make sure you're factoring that in, because once you make the decision, you should also know, okay, it's going to take me about 30 to 90 days as someone unfamiliar with it or someone with a little experience. Be realistic of how long and set yourself a timeline. There's a timeline when to start, and then consider the time required as well. Let me go over some quick tips on how to optimize your software, and then we can move on to our next section. Here are 5 really important things to consider. One is making sure you have it correctly set up. That includes your basic business information, but also your chart of accounts, and making sure that applies to your business. What's nice is a lot of these softwares have a wizard kind of tutorial to walk you step by step, and they have a library of resources. And of course, we all know YouTube, you can ask anything. So making sure you have a step-by-step to correctly set it up is important. Customizing it to fit your needs. If there are specific budgets you need to have, you can customize it for whatever makes sense for you and your business. Automations are great, where you can have the data from your bank feed in automatically. That one is highly, highly recommended if you're doing a large amount of transactions. Developing internal controls. Having internal controls through your software where certain people do certain functions, you can limit who does what. That's really important as well. And then establishing routines. That's also critical. Scheduling time when you're doing certain functions within your software. And we'll talk more about that. Those last 2, we're going to move on to that as we go into policies. Now that we have the software, let's talk about these policies. So what are policies? So they're principles, guidelines, and procedures that will govern your accounting practices, whether you're 1 person or 1,000 people. Having standard policies in place really will help your business with consistency, compliance, transparency, help you manage risk and make better decisions. Here's some other ways that policies help your business. They'll clarify staff roles. Even if you have a volunteer or an intern helping you with some of the roles, being able to outline who's doing what is really critical. The internal controls, just like we talked about with software, it'll strengthen your operation, it'll position you for growth, and it creates efficient systems. The step-by-step on how to develop policy this is my recommendation as follows. So first, you want to identify who's on your money team. You want to evaluate and write down how you're currently managing your finances. And then number 3, you're going to draft improved policies and procedures. Then you'll implement those said policies. And then after a while, after a few weeks of getting your wheels turning and using them effectively, you want to review and revise them. Policies are not a one and done. At least on an annual basis, you'll want to review, especially as you grow and add team members and things of that nature. Do I have any volunteers that use AI often and would like to recommend a prompt to strengthen this particular policy? Just say, help me strengthen. And you can also, as many of you know, you can help kind of train AI. I don't know the technical word, but train AI to get familiar. If you log in, I chose to go incognito for this demonstration, but in my account, they know the background of my business, so it's easier. So I'm just going to type, can you help me strengthen this accounting policy for my counseling company? So they can get real specific. I didn't tell them who's responsible for what. You can kind of see if you want to play with it. Another one is, do I have appropriate checks and balances for our financial report policy listed here? And I'm showing you this not to overwhelm anyone, but start super basic and simple. Matter of fact, just pick 5 policies that are most important and just master those policies. Start plugging in the information, and then when you're ready to revise it or look at it again, consider pushing it through AI. Just a side tip, I like to start with at least my bullet points, or I'll just, do an audio recording of my thoughts, and then I carry my original content to AI, help make it more concise or strengthen or ask it questions, and then I turn around and edit it and make it my own. Here's our recap. Okay, so your challenge There it is. You'll get that reminder again, is to draft your policies. Start small if you have to. Pick your top 3 to 5 policies, master that, and keep building from there.